Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar about dating violence on campus. My name is Alexia Walker, and I have my colleague here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Pena. Nice to meet you.
And we come from an organization called Day One.
Okay, about our services. So our mission is to end teen dating abuse and domestic violence through community education, supportive services, legal advocacy, and leadership development. We believe in leadership development to build communities. So we partner with young people and survivors 24 and under to create the safe, healthy, and respectful partnerships that they deserve.
So some of our services could look a little like this. So we have the community education team, which we are a part of, and we just provide workshops, to educate other organizations, youth, and people that work with youth, right, about teen domestic violence and to give them a place where they could gather their resources as well. We also have legal services, which provides advice and information looking like orders of protection, custody and visitation, child support, and also domestic violence-based immigration help. We do have a social work team as well that provides individual and group counseling, case management services, and advocacy and support.
So just some quick community agreements. Just please, when we're in the space, I would like this to be a safe space for all. So please be mindful of your language and other people's stories if you guys decide to share. Please be patient as well, is all we ask. Allow others to finish their thoughts. And please, if you feel to share yours, do so. And just as a warning, some of these topics are sensitive. So please, if you feel like you need to take a break, take a pause, maybe have some water around or a snack, you are advised to. If so, please just be kind to yourself and others while you're in the space.
Awesome. So a reflective question to kick us off, right? Since we're talking about dating abuse on campus, a great question we thought to lead us into that topic is, what was your college experience like? So Mr. Pena, right? What was your college experience like? How did it look like for you?
So my college experience, I would have to say it was rocky, I would like to say. So in the beginning, I had a lot of trouble making friends. I had like a relationship back at home. So it was really hard to like juggle that relationship at home, keeping in touch with family, making new friends at the school that I'm at. So it was really hard to be present when I had so much that I was worried about back home. But as time progressed, I began to make friends, friends that I really trusted, friends that kept me safe, that I felt safe around, that I kept safe as well. And we had like a little group that we used to study together. We even lived together for a year. So that relationship just grew and I still keep in touch with them now. So I would have to say my college experience overall was I would have to say it was definitely a learning experience, like getting to know like what sort of people I want around me, right? Who is it that like what are signs that a person is reliable or trustworthy? And there were some people who I didn't stay friends with because of certain reasons. But it was all helping me understand what it is that I want, in terms of like friends or a relationship. What about
Okay, so I just
you,
want to
Alexia?
clarify. I
Hmm.
just want to ask a quick question, right? So you want to wait to for college.
You said what? Oh yeah, yeah. I
You
want
want
to
to
wait. Yeah, 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 yeah. I dormed. Yeah, yeah. Dormed for 4 years. Yep, yep. Hmm.
Also, this is great because we could shed light on two different perspectives, right? So I went to college in the city, and I feel like going to college out here was extremely tough to make new friends because everyone that goes into the classroom is either one person you may know or you don't know them at all, right? And I feel for me, my experience, every class that I had at the college I attended, I never knew anyone. And no one really gave a warm demeanor for me to want to say, hey, hello, let's be cool. What's it looking like? Maybe we could do study groups and stuff. Everybody really came to class and stuck to themselves. There was no, hey, how was your day? How was work? Right? How was the last exam? It was just, In the classroom, the professor spoke, nothing more, nothing less, you left. So I want to say, like, for you, because you said you were able to make trustworthy bonds and really like have reflective moments, like, are these people individuals I could be comfortable with? And for me, I never had that. So you actually were able to build a community, right? Like have a family base out there.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that
we
was
kind of, yeah, we kind of like gravitated toward each other because we went to like a predominantly white school. So it was like only like about 200 of us, 100 of us, and we all came, well, most of us came from the city. So we had like a lot of things in common, came from like sort of the same culture, right? And I think that's very understandable given that you went to school in the city, just because the culture here is like, you got to be real protective, right? It's kind of is the atmosphere, the environment is more so like you're lucky if a person says thank you when you hold the door for them. It's like it's things like that that were really different when I went upstate. It was like everybody said thank you, everybody held the door. You could have been like half a mile away from the door, and that student would hold it for you and wait for you. So yeah, I think my college did do a real good job at creating a sense of community. And I'm sorry your experience was like that. I wish everybody had like a warm environment, especially in college, because it could be really scary, especially for your first year. But you're here. We're here.
yeah,
We made it through.
we did it. So moving forward, thank you for sharing too.
Okay, so here we have a video about two individuals that are friends. So they go to their first college party and we're gonna see what transpires. Okay.
Me and Anna were at our first college day party.
Pulled out the pink Lamborghini, just a race with China. What the race to China? Just a race in China. Little woman, cut the check, bust it out. Turn your goofy dog. Pow, I'ma do split on it, yeah, split on it. I'm a bad
The party was amazing. I mean, I was trying to get Anna to slow her roll and she wasn't having it. But things between us were going great. Until they weren't.
So just to give some
Okay.
context about the video, so the friend eventually leaves. So the friend that wasn't throwing up, right? Zoe, she's actually the one that at the end of the video, it doesn't show in the clip, but she ends up leaving her friend that clearly needs help, just to give it some context. But turning it over to you, Lexi.
Thanks for the context because that part was really important, right? Like Zoe left. So some questions that we do want to ask with this situation is Zoe, who is the coherent friend, responsible for their friend Anna, the impaired student? So what's your take on that? Like, do you feel that Zoe was responsible for them?
Well, I am a strong believer in, everybody makes their own choices, right? And everybody should be responsible for themselves. But if I have a friend that I consider my friend, right? Someone that I trust and we spend time together, I would think that in a situation like that, that my friend would take care of me, right? And if I'm being honest, if I later found out that my friend just left me there, it'd probably make our relationship really rocky. But in terms of like being responsible, do you mean like legally or like with school? Do you think like she should get like detention or something or suspension? What do you mean by like held responsible?
Being held responsible, I guess it's just overall, right? Like understanding the dynamic of their relationship. So when it does come out into the light that, Zoe left Anna, should she be held liable for that? Because I feel like if I'm going to a place with my friends, right, I feel it's mentioned, but also understood. We're obligated and we have a responsibility to make sure we're looking out for one another because I'm feeling safe with you. You're feeling safe with me. We don't know what could happen. We're the only people that really know one another amongst a group of strangers, right? So why would you feel so comfortable to leave me behind if I was in that kind of state? You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to be my friend. I'm supposed to feel like if anything was supposed to happen, I could at least depend on you without even having to ask it. It's just the expectation. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for me, I feel like Zoe was responsible because you came to the party with her. You know, like you saw how the state that they were in. What if something happened? You know, which kind of leads us into the next question of that what if. How could the situation have negatively impacted Anna, the impaired student?
I think you can take this one first. This question.
So I feel like for me, there's a lot of cases where you hear about young students going off to college parties and even bars, clubs, and etc. And they're roofied, right? So I'm thinking, what if Anna got roofied after Zoe left her, right? Like, what if she ended up getting raped or molested? And a lot of the time when people drink, not a lot of them are able to really recall the things that transpired the night before. You know what I mean? So what if something did happen and Anna probably found out later on, probably went to the hospital, wasn't feeling so well. And now they're telling her, like, you have trauma in places you shouldn't have trauma. You know what I mean? So it's like that could stay with somebody for a lifetime, you know? So,
No, yeah, I agree. I think in terms of like the potential harm that could be caused to Anna because the friend left, I would think like at least communicate, right? Or call someone that maybe is in a position that cares about Anna to help her. I think just leaving her in that state wasn't the best choice. But I also would like to hear like Zoe's side, like why did she feel like she needed to leave? Did she feel embarrassed? I think this sort of comes down to like what sort of standards you have in your friendship. And I think that this could be either like a make or break kind of conversation with the two of them, right? Because we're not perfect. I would like to emphasize that. Um,
true.
but I definitely do think you have a strong point in terms of like, it could be irreversible damage that could have been done to Anna. Okay.
And you mentioned something too, right? Like she could have called, Zoe could have called someone. It could have been a family member, right? Uber or campus security, someone. And I feel like sometimes people think helping means you have to be the sole caretaker, but helping could also look like a phone call, right? Like, let me reach out to someone that could better help with the situation. So thank you for mentioning that too. So our last reflective question, and I think this is a really strong one. This is a great question. Should students standing by face consequences? And what does standing by also look like?
I would identify standing by as, because a lot of these students are like drunk and stuff, right? So they're all probably like it's in a similar state of mind. But I think like people who are just like recording, enabling that sort of intoxication, getting other people to just continue drinking when clearly someone needs to call an ambulance or get help for Anna. I think there should be some sort of consequence to help them understand like we need to make sure this college campus is a community where we are looking out for one another, right? Those responsible who had a part to play in it, there has to be some sort of consequence to ensure that students understand that these things can't go without being answered, right? Because like you mentioned, anything could have happened to Anna. Like worst case scenario, she could have got sexually assaulted. And
Mhm.
I think that this is not something that students in college really think about unless they have the education or have sat through a workshop that emphasizes like, hey, it's important, to, if you see someone who needs help to call for help or help them if you can yourself. Um, so yeah. I think, what about you? What do you think?
Well, you said something, and it kind of like reversed my initial statement. I was gonna say yes, but now reflecting back on my college experience, right? Like I do not recall ever having a workshop or a class that set out who to call or who to go to if we were supposed to, face a situation like this, right? Like, you have the public safety guards on the campus, but they're not everywhere. There's only like 2 main points. But what about the campus parties if there were supposed to be them? So I think it's really important for campuses to have workshops and classes about this topic. And also, if the students attended, then hold them accountable. If they went in this environment and refused to actually act out on the protocol, they should be held reliable. They should definitely face some form of consequence because you knew what to do, but you didn't do it. You know what I mean?
So I think like in terms of consequences, I don't mean like they should like get suspended or something like that, but they should definitely be required or obligated, or even the whole campus, right? To be obligated to sit through like webinars like these, right? That to talk about it, to understand, to reflect, to build that sort of okay, this is why this is important. Because like I mentioned before, I still will stand on like everybody does have a responsibility toward themselves. Everybody makes their own choices, but if you can help, especially when you're on a campus, away from your parents, away from like maybe authority, if you're at a house party, it's important that we have some percentage of students that understand, okay, this is a situation where I need to ask for help. Like, it's not being a buzzkill, it's not party pooper. It's more so like things could get ugly real fast if someone doesn't act responsibly.
Definitely true. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Pena. All right.
Thank you. Okay, so what is dating abuse / violence? So I want to make something very clear, right? We're not perfect, right? Sometimes we may be engaging in unhealthy behavior, whether that looks like raising your voice or, storming off, slamming the door, right? But I want to emphasize that what the person does after that action, right, is what matters, right? So if a person does something that may be identified as unhealthy behavior, right? Maybe they raise their voice and they don't typically do that. What is that person doing after? Are they like trying to hold themselves accountable? Is this an isolated incident or is this ongoing? So it becomes abuse when one partner in a relationship engages in a pattern of power and control over another person, right? So abuse isn't usually an isolated incident. It's usually typically a pattern that usually starts off maybe with throwing things or raising your voice, right? There's some sort of red flags, but eventually turns to something more serious, right? Like emotional abuse or physical abuse.
Thank you for that. So some types of abuse that we will be looking at today, right, is physical abuse, threatening family members and friends, sexual abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, financial abuse, technological abuse or cyberbullying, narcissistic abuse, which can include gaslighting, criticism, and humiliation, stalking, cultural or identity-based abuse, such as racism or sexism, exploitation, such as forcing a person to do all the domestic labor, and abuse based on immigration status.
So we're gonna take a second to ask a question, right? So what does a healthy college campus located in New York look like to you? So what do you think, Lexi? What does a healthy college campus look like?
A healthy college campus, because I mean, like we said before, New Yorkers, they stick to themselves. So as long as I'm not seeing big crowds, like, and there's no event taking place, like, I think that's a healthy college campus. But also knowing that I'm seeing school safety on campus, right? Public safety. I'm seeing that there's signs and offices where we could go to. I'm seeing that people actually care about what's happening on the campus and having like hotlines to call, or like groups or something available that we could join. That's what a healthy college campus in New York looks like to me. What about you?
I think a healthy college campus looks like um so a college that's invested in, you know, making sure that students have the resources, sort of like you mentioned, right? Like there's facilities, there's people that, you know, they can go to, whether it be counselors, social workers, also like a healthy college campus kind of looks like a college that promotes community, so like doing events, right, cultural events, even to make sure we're promoting inclusivity, having students interact with each other, build connections, having people, maybe alumni coming from you know, coming from wherever they're from, right, to the campus to talk to students about like, okay, like these are routes that I've taken, right? Giving some insight about, okay, what does after college look like for you? So really what looks what kind of like a college that's more so built to professionally develop students while also
Mhm.
incorporating that social aspect that, you know, college students need to make sure they're doing things that are engaging, things that they can put on their resume, you know, just strengthening their character overall for sure.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Well, this was your question. I'm saying thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing, Lexi.
So, we're going to be discussing now just about like what type of different relationship spectrums we could see, right? So this is a healthy relationship spectrum, also known as power sharing, which is where people in the relationship have healthy communication, right? We're able to talk to one another about any things that we may be facing in the relationship or our personal lives. Being respectful, right? Like understanding that there's boundaries in relationships individually, right? Like there may be things I'm comfortable with that you may not be comfortable with, and that's okay. I need to respect that. Having trust, right? Trust is also very important to have in a relationship because we also don't want people to feel like we're trying to, you know, belittle them or lie or do things that aren't truthful or taking away from their honesty, which goes into the next one. Um, it is key to be honest, right? You could also keep things private. It's okay, which goes into boundaries. And just having equality, right? Like we could all make decisions. We could all be respectful. We could share the workload. It doesn't have to be one particular person. It doesn't have to be based off our sex or culture or anything like that. Equality is always very important in a healthy relationship.
Definitely is. Hey, so next question. What does unhealthy college campus looks like to you? Hey, what you think, Lexi?
So, you were talking about before promoting, you know, community and just resources and stuff like that, right? So I feel like an unhealthy college campus is something like opposite of that. Like they're not promoting a safe environment. They're not promoting, you know, growth for their students. They're not promoting um just healthy education. I feel based off my college experience, I didn't have anyone to talk to or go to, whether it was about my education, safety, anything like that. I really didn't have that. So for me, that's what a healthy college campus would look like. And also lack of protocol. Protocol is very important. So also one that doesn't have like protocol or any measures like to take in case a situation happens. That,
Yeah,
what about you? What
I
does that
agree.
look like for
I
you?
I agree. I there were a couple incidents on campus that I believe my college didn't handle it very well. I won't get into too many details, but there was something that a student said that was very racist. And
Oh,
instead
I'm
of,
sorry.
yeah, so instead of like them doing like what they said they would in terms of like student code of conduct if you violate it, right? If you know, it's usually grounds for like expulsion or some sort of action to help you understand like, this is not something that the college promotes. This is not the sort of students that we want at this campus, right? We want all our students to feel safe. And instead of that, they just made him apologize to the school, and it was not the best apology, I would like to say. And a big reason for that was because his parents were donors to the school. So it just felt like a lot of us, it impacted a lot of us, and it wasn't something that, like gave us any justice, right? Or gave us or made us feel like the university actually cared about their students, all of their students. So I believe like a college that really mishandles situations like that. I think another way a campus could be unhealthy is just like I've noticed sometimes like professors could be like real old,
Mm.
or like the nurse or even like the counselor could be really cold to students, just because they're probably seeing many students. They've probably been doing this for a couple years. But I think that enthusiasm is important. I think that inclusivity is important. I think that students feeling like they can go to their professors, going to other adults within the campus for whatever help or assistance that they need, they should feel comfortable in doing so, right? So I think if a college doesn't care about the way professors are treating students or the way counselors are treating students, are asking for feedback from students about the treatment that they're getting, or when they are receiving help, what that looks like. I think that those are places that are being negligent and are unhealthy.
You said had a lot of strong points, and I kind of want to circle back to one of them, right? When you were talking about the racist comment that was said and how that situation was handled. Now, since we're talking about what dating abuse or well, campus abuse looks like, right? Imagine if a student was assaulted on campus. How would they feel comfortable, or how are they supposed to feel comfortable going to someone higher up saying this took place to them if that's how they handle that particular situation with just an apology? So things like that could really hinder for a lot of students from wanting to speak up about situations, because it's going to be in the back of their mind, well, you don't care enough to do anything about it anyway, so why should I step forward about it? That's what came to me when you said that. So honestly, thank you for sharing that. Really was really impactful. Um, so the next relationship spectrum, the unhealthy relationship where we're fighting for power, also known as the power struggle. So not having healthy communication, right? Where fighting or just someone is trying to overpower someone in communication, trying to have a bigger voice, being disrespectful, not being considerate of boundaries and feelings, not trusting your partner, right? Not believing what they say, trying to invade their privacy, and also invalidating their feelings and minimizing their emotions, being dishonest by telling lies, right? Trying to take control, making their partner feel like their desires and choices are not important. And only spending time with one another, right? Not socializing with own community. So you're trying to lessen the community that they have around them and trying to like have them severe ties with other people.
Okay, and now we have abusive. So when a partner is being abusive, right? So when they're communicating in a way that is hurtful, threatening, insulting, or demeaning. Um, they're being disrespectful of feelings, thoughts, decisions, opinions, or physical safety of the other, right? This can mean like maybe the other person has religious beliefs, right? Not respecting those things as well. Blaming a partner for their harmful actions. So when abuser does something, right? Maybe like the abuser hits the person, saying things like, "It's your fault that I hit you. Why do you make me do this?" Right? When no one deserves that sort of abuse, right? So this is a way for them to make excuses for the abusive actions that they do, and they try to control and isolate the other partner by telling them things like what to wear, who they can hang out with, where they can go, and or what they can and can't do. So these are tactics, right, that abusers use to make sure that the person who's receiving that mistreatment, um, that is their fault, right? That to make them believe or to perceive that abuse as, I deserve this. Like, why am I not better? Like, why can't I impress this person? Why am I always making mistakes to make them abuse me, right, or hurt me? When the reality is that it's not that person's fault. It's never the victim's fault for the abuse that they're experiencing, right? But when you don't have a good idea of what love should look like, right? You may think that this abuse that you're experiencing is love. And this is sometimes where people stand when they are receiving abuse.
Awesome. So how does emotional abuse look? So this is just going to be a quick video about 4 signs of an unhealthy relationship.
Emotional abuse can be incredibly damaging, increasing a person's chances of developing depression and anxiety, sometimes for decades after the fact. Broadly speaking, emotional abuse involves one person controlling another by undermining their sense of self-worth and personal agency. But emotionally abusive behaviors can be subtle and difficult to spot, both from within and outside the abusive relationship. That's partly because emotional abuse often exploits or creates power imbalances between individuals, especially in relationships where safety, care, and trust are supposed to be guaranteed. Like the relationship between a caregiver and a child, healthcare provider and patient, teacher and student, or intimate partners. It's especially insidious because it often makes people doubt their perceptions of their own mistreatment. So let's walk through some of the most common signs of emotional abuse to make these behaviors and patterns easier to spot in real life. First, the content of someone's words. Criticism that's out of proportion to a situation, excessively harsh or personal, or makes sweeping generalizations or baseless negative predictions for the future is a warning sign of emotional abuse. Statements like, "You always make such stupid decisions," "You never do anything right," and "Nobody else will ever love you," aren't constructive, they're never warranted, and someone's use of them is a red flag. Second, tone and nonverbal cues. Yelling, ignoring, and showing contempt through body language are all ways to degrade someone. Dismissive behaviors like eye-rolling, glaring, or refusal to make eye contact, along with refusing to speak to someone or acknowledge their presence, sometimes called the silent treatment, can all feature in patterns of emotional abuse. These behaviors can painfully transform the meaning of spoken statements that might otherwise seem benign. Third, how someone reacts to being told they've said or done something hurtful can give important insight. Do they apologize sincerely and act differently in the future? Or do they dismiss and minimize the pain they've caused? It's common for abusers to try to undermine their target's perceptions of events. This is sometimes referred to as gaslighting, following up demeaning, humiliating, or threatening remarks with comments that dismiss the impact of those remarks, like, "I'm just trying to help you improve yourself. You should be grateful." Or, "It's really you that's selfish and manipulative. You're hurting me," are examples of this behavior. Lastly, when someone directs any of these behaviors at you, take note of whether this is part of a pattern of behavior from them. A one-time incident of name-calling or a demeaning insult might not be emotional abuse, while repetition over time can have a much more serious impact. Both frequency, how often these behaviors occur in a given period of time, and duration, how long they last, whether days or years, can contribute to the severity of the abuse. It's also important to remember that abusers rarely engage in abusive behaviors 100% of the time. Moments of kindness or calm don't invalidate moments of abuse, but are actually part of the cycle of emotional manipulation. So what can you do if you think you or someone you care about is experiencing emotional abuse? Maintaining interpersonal ties with people other than the abuser is crucial, as abusers often try to isolate their targets from others close to them. If you think you might be experiencing emotional abuse, consider sharing your experiences with a trusted friend or relative to get outside support. Or you can seek local or national confidential advocacy centres that can provide helpful resources. And if you think someone you know is being emotionally abused, check in with them. Let them know you're thinking of them and that you're ready to listen whenever they'd like to share. While emotional abusers may convince people that they deserve to be mistreated, nobody does. Everyone deserves kindness and respect.
Okay, so there we have it. We will be touching on this a little bit more in a few slides that we have coming up.
So what is love bombing? So love bombing is when someone overwhelms you with a lot of affection, attention, and compliments to gain control over you quickly, right? And on social media, I think this term is used a lot. Um, so kind of like when someone doesn't really have real intention of loving you, just more so controlling you or to get something from you that conveniences them. They'll like try to shower you with flowers and love and send you these text messages, these cute messages, and call you and let them know that they're thinking about you when throughout that whole time they never really had an intention to treat you the way that you should be treated, right? So this is what love bombing is.
Awesome. So we're going to dive into gaslighting, and this is going to be quick because the video did shed light on it. So I found out recently, oh my goodness, not my computer trying to embarrass me. But I found out recently that the term actually came from a movie that originated back in 1944. So as we know, gaslighting is a form of manipulation in which one person makes another person feel like they're going crazy or that they can't trust themselves. Right. So just a quick story of context. In this movie, you have a newlywed couple and she is just moving in with her husband. He says he's going off to work, but as he's going off to work, he's really sneaking back into the house. And as she's resting, dimming the lights and then trying to make her feel like she's going crazy, like that's not happening. It's not taking place. So you could only imagine what other manipulative tactics that he was doing later on. So just providing a quick backstory of the origin and the term.
Amazing. So what are some examples of gaslighting? We seen some in the video, but I'm trying to think of one. You got one off the top, Lexi?
One that I like to use with the kids to help them understand in particular is like if you catch someone doing something in the act, right? Like I see that you're drinking my cup of juice with my name on it, right? But now that person is trying to convince you it's really not your cup of juice, it's theirs, right? Like they changed the cup while I wasn't looking, or all of a sudden they decided to get the same exact name as you. And people will really take like bizarre measures to try and make you believe that everything that you feel is true is not true. They're basically invalidating all of that. So that could be an example. Or like, even though this is not condoned, going through someone's phone and you see something that you're not supposed to be seeing because you're not supposed to be going through their phone, right? And now that person is trying to tell you that you really didn't see anything. It was all made up in your mind. And then behind your back, they try to go and delete it. And when you go back to look for it, now it's not there. But it was there. You saw it, you discussed it with them. They know that it was there, but now they're trying to make you feel like you're going crazy and trying to create doubt, right? That nothing transpired. So those are some. examples that I use normally.
Nah, yeah, and given that last situation, like, you can also look at it like in opposite ends. So like, this actually has happened to me. I caught someone looking through my phone, and I didn't necessarily catch them. Like, they were just using my phone, which I didn't think nothing of it. Like, whatever, use my phone. But when I got my phone, I'm looking at my messages, and there's messages that are read that I have not read.
Ooh.
So that's a conversation, right? And they tried to, like, oh no, like, I don't even have your passcode. Like, what are you talking about? I just changed the song on your phone, blah blah blah. So yeah, I think that's another example there.
I wasn't laughing like at your situation. It was just more so like the disbelief, right? Because it
Yeah,
was like I, I see it. Just be honest with me. Like I see it. I just want to hear the truth. But so situations take place sometimes,
be honest.
which is why we're having these
Important.
workshops.
Yes.
So is it my go? Or is it your go?
Is your go?
Is my go? Okay.
Yeah.
So physical abuse, right? Like what does physical abuse look like? Even though we may have an idea, it's still important to go over the traits. So physically harming someone, right? Punching, kicking, slapping, hair pulling, shaking, and pinching, choking, right? Using objects or weapons, throwing objects and punching walls, because that could be threatening because you're basically acting like those objects is that person. You want them to have that in mind, like this could be you. Restraining their movements. So some facts that we have here is, did you know nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience physical abuse from a dating partner in a single year? Let's just reflect on that. 1.5 million high school students nationwide experiencing physical abuse from a dating partner in a single year. That's a lump sum, right? That's a huge number. Another thing is 1 in 10 high school students has been purposefully hit, slapped, or physically hurt by a partner. So it's really important that we're making sure to have our students, our young people identify red flags, right? Like, how often is this person having outbursts? Because if they can't physically control themselves, right, emotionally, they could end up harming you at some point in time. So it's really important that we give them the resources that they need and have these type of discussions.
Yeah, and just to add, this is why it's important that when these incidents do happen, that the campus, right, the college campus is making a valiant effort to make sure, like, this situation doesn't happen again, or like this sort of behavior cannot be condoned, because if it's not handled well, right, when these incidents do happen, it could be very hard for a student to speak up about it if they don't believe that the people that are there that are meant to help will help. So I just want to emphasize the importance of that.
No, thank you. That's important. Okay, so passing the baton to you.
Okay, so how can abuse happen on campus when classes are hybrid or remote? I would say, like, there's a chat box, right? So maybe when students are saying discriminatory words, right? Or saying things that make the class or the hybrid remote class feel hostile. I've known this has happened sometimes during my workshops when I've had them remote with students. Another way is dressing inappropriately for class to, like, make a statement, right? I've read up on, like, students, like, wearing blackface as a way to, like, mock students of color during their classes, right? Although they weren't an actual student of the class, right? Those things can happen. If they got the Zoom link, if the Zoom link was leaked. What about you, Lexi? Have any
Yeah,
views?
I'll say like using derogatory language, right? Having inappropriate photos as their background, because you see we have our backgrounds up. And like you mentioned with the chat box, using emojis. a lot of people try to downplay emojis, but emojis have meaning, right? Like, and some things can have a double meaning, but if you use it and pay attention and check out the context, you can know if it's inappropriate or not. There shouldn't be eggplant emojis being used if we're talking about history, like this isn't a gardening class, right? And so on and so forth. So yeah, I feel like those were some good points brought up.
That's a great point with the emojis. They definitely do mean something.
Yeah. Leading into technology abuse, right? So what could technology abuse look like? It could look like excessive unwanted calls, unwanted text messages, and also unwanted social media posts, changing someone's password, posting unauthorized intimate photos, creating fake profiles, revenge porn, which we have a slide dedicated for that. So another factor is, did you know 50% of youth age 14 to 24 experience digitally abusive behavior? And this is really important because throughout the years, you have, if you pull up articles and even type it online, you could see the suicide rates and depression rates, right, for young adults, especially those that go to college campuses and don't have community to help and support them, that have faced a form of technology abuse. Because once it's on the internet, it's there forever. Everyone has access to it. And especially with the usage of AI now, a few months ago, there was a young girl, I believe she was between the age of 12 to 14. This happened out in the UK, but it's still relevant. Someone used AI to create nude photos of her, and they posted it all over the internet. Everyone at school saw it, and they committed suicide and their school's back. So you could only imagine, right? Like, how many times did this young girl try to get help? Because there's a lot of times they try to find someone to talk to and confide in. So imagine how many times did they try to tell teachers? How many times did the parents try to tell the educators, right? How many times did they try to seek someone to stop, and it probably was swept under the rug and not acknowledged the way that it needed to be? Their life could have been spared. So heading into our next slide.
So revenge porn. Revenge porn is a type of digital abuse in which nude or sexually explicit photos or videos are shared without the consent of those pictured. And it happens when current or previous partners may share images as revenge or threaten to distribute them as a type of blackmail. I do want to add that friends can also do this to you as well, in a way to blackmail you. I've heard of students or people in general just going through other people's phones without their permission and getting information to blackmail them with. So please be mindful of those who have access to like maybe your social media accounts. I know sometimes people do like to share those, so making it clear to students like, hey, you shouldn't be sharing those types of that sort of information with anyone, especially if you have sensitive information on it. And in the state of New York, it is a criminal and civil offense to disclose any intimate image of another person with the intent to cause harm. Threats to disclose can be addressed civilly. This act is punishable up to 1 year in jail or 3 years probation and a fine up to $1,000 in criminal court. Now, this doesn't stop people from doing this, unfortunately, right? We still have incidents where we have youth still experiencing this. So it's important to understand that students do know the impact that this may have on a person, right? On their career even, right? Because like you mentioned, things that are shared online may be there forever. Um, and that's something that could lead someone to harming themselves, harming another person, right? So it's very important that um, we're giving students this education to understand like there are consequences and to make sure that, we are protecting ourselves and being very careful with who we're sharing anything with.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Mr. Pena. All right, so sexual abuse, right, which is the unwanted touching and kissing, the pressuring or forcing for sex. forcing sexual acts or behaviors that they're not comfortable with, controlling decisions about birth control, refusing to use birth control, right, which is also known as stealthing, failure to disclose medical history of sexually transmitted infections, STI, and deliberately infecting someone, reproductive coercion, right, sabotaging birth control, trying to get pregnant or trying to get someone pregnant, revenge porn, spiking, right? When someone puts alcohol or drugs into another person's drink or food without their knowledge or consent. So a fact here is, did you know girls and young women between the ages of 16 to 24 experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence, almost triple the national average? And I just want to say this, right? Even though it's talking about girls and young women, it doesn't mean that our young boys and men don't face sexual abuse as well, right? A lot of these things are based off of what people are willing to share. They're collecting data from individuals. So not all the time these numbers may be fully true or accurate, because people may feel some way, somehow their truth may get out. So just keep that in mind. It's for any type of sex, any gender.
That was a great point to make.
Thank you.
So stealthing, right? Stealthing is non-consensual removal of a condom during sex when a partner has agreed to condom protected sex. So stealthing is considered a form of sexual assault, and it is actively proposed by legislators to become punishable by law. Stealthing is a crime in many other countries such as Germany, Singapore, Switzerland, and Canada. So yes, these things do happen. Um, it's not it's something that it should be punishable by law. Because like we mentioned before, there are like sexually transmitted infections, and this is just you know, a clear breach of trust. Um, when you've already agreed to something and someone just goes along and does something else entirely, right? So yeah.
Yep. Thank you for that. So heading into intimate partner violence and sexually transmitted infections, right? Also known as IPV, which is defined as physical, sexual, or psychological harm by a current or former partner or spouse. Sexually transmitted infections can be utilized to perpetuate abuse and cause harm to a person in an abusive relationship, right? So this is what happens when the abuser wants to expose their victims to STI through deception or force. And you'll be surprised, right? Like for us, it's like, wow, this is regular information, but not a lot of people understand how this could be so negatively impactful in somebody's life. Because now, you have stories of people contacting HIV and they're sleeping with numerous people, right? Giving them this disease, not letting them know what their status is. And a lot of the time they do it because they don't want to feel alone. They don't want to feel alone with this disease. They feel like, they were wrong, so other people should be wronged as well. And now you're binded to me in some shape or form. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? You could go get help. You have groups, you have counseling, therapy. There's so many things that you could do, as well as using proper protection, and please get tested.
Emphasis on tested. I think students definitely don't prioritize that as much as they should. In terms of like, me just overlooking society as a whole. But it's definitely something that should be practiced way more often. So
Yes.
financial abuse, creating financial dependence by controlling ability to work or go to school, right? So telling someone like, hey, that you don't have to go to work, or hey, you shouldn't go to school, or not allowing them to, right? And then using that financial dependence against them, right? Oh, if you don't do my laundry, I'm not gonna give you money to go grocery shopping, or I'm not gonna give you money to buy basic necessity things. So withholding money for basic needs, taking earnings, or stealing their identity, ruining a partner's credit score. That's not something typical that we hear, but those things happen too. Forcing a victim to turn over public benefits and refusing to pay bills deliberately to cause harm to the victim's credit or cause homelessness. So we don't really so a lot of times we don't really touch on financial abuse like as a whole in society, I believe. But this is also a form of abuse that is common.
So I do want to highlight too, right? Like, which is why it's extremely important when you have like your credit profiles and these things on your phone, take the extra step to put in like the extra security barrier, right? And also do not share that information. Our young people are so willing to be like, oh, well, because this person is my best friend or because I'm dating this person, they need to know what I have going on. No, they do not. Some things should just be kept private because now it could impact you again in the long run. It could mess up your credit. It could mess up opportunities for you financially, right? If you need to buy, like, not just need, but if you want to buy a home, if you want to purchase a car, when you're doing applications for, loans and etc., once your stuff is messed up and it's out there, it's really hard to do the footwork to try and, retract and get it on a clean slate again. So just food for thought. So next one, right? The cycle of abuse. So we have tension building, which is where like a lot of tension, conflict, and stress is taking place during this time. The abusive incident, right? Although this is I want to make sure I word. I think you worded it a little bit better than I did, Jonathan. So I'm going to pass the torch to you, so you
All
could
right.
put this in your words.
So yeah, I got you. So typically when we're doing the cycle of abuse, when we're talking about the cycle of abuse, I don't want us to look at this as like it just goes one way, right? Typically when two people are starting a relationship, right? First is like, the lovey-dovey and holding hands and getting each other presents and just getting to know each other, right? That's typically what the honeymoon stage looks like. You just want like more of each other. And then there's the calm, right? So the calm is more so like it's chill, things are going good, things are, just vibing, right? And then there's the tension building, right? So this, like Lexi mentioned, is where like maybe this could be from tension from life. Maybe it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with the relationship, right? But maybe it does have something to do with the relationship, right? So that tension starts to cause a friction between two people. And um sometimes if they're not communicating well, right, it goes into an escalation, right? Sometimes it is abuse. Sometimes it's not abuse, right? Because like I mentioned before, sometimes we act in unhealthy ways and it may be an argument, right? Really heated argument, right? Not necessarily an abusive incident, but not to shy away from it, it can become abusive because sometimes couples cycle through this more times than once, right? So maybe we have a couple that is at the honeymoon stage, they go to the calm, and then they reach the tension building stage, but because they communicate effectively, they were healthy in the way they targeted that problem, they're going back to the calm, or maybe even going back to the honeymoon stage, right? But it doesn't always need to get to the abusive incident. But when there is an abusive relationship, this cycle a person could repeat the cycle more than 16, 17 times, right? Because after that abusive incident, that abuser may get the person flowers like, hey, I didn't mean to hit you, or hey, I'm so sorry about what I did. Can you please forgive me? I'll be better, right? So you go back to the honeymoon stage, right? Because the victim believes that this person is going to change or, are going to do things better and not harm them the way that they did. But sometimes um, well, most times, right, when a person apologizes that way, they don't necessarily mean it, right? Because, like I mentioned before, abuse is when there's a pattern, right? So, yeah, they're saying sorry and giving you gifts and things like that, but they're still engaging in that abusive behavior that is causing harm, and it will only escalate after that. So, I hope that was a good explanation.
You did great. You did great. Thank you. Okay. What happened? All right, so some lasting consequences, right? What could this look like? So victims could experience symptoms of depression and anxiety, engaging in unhealthy behaviors like substance abuse, drinking heavily, taking drugs, Exhibiting harmful behaviors like lying, theft, bullying, or hitting, becoming suicidal. If you know anyone that is, please pick up the phone and call 988. Experiencing physical pain and ongoing health complications. Violence in adolescent relationships sets the stage for unhealthy behaviors in future relationships, including intimate partner violence and sexual violence perpetration and victimization throughout life. So we do have the facts here. Oh, what did I do? Youth who experience abuse violence in high school are at higher risk to enter an abusive relationship during college, which is extremely important while we're having these workshops and going on having this topic discussion as well, because a lot of our youth are coming into college. They're feeling like, you know what, all of our traumas are gone. We're starting a new chapter. That's really not the case, right? You could suppress things, but for so long, which is really important why they have community, which is really important why we provide them the resources that they need and deserve.
1,000,000%. So barriers to seeking support, right? So this may be some reasons why someone on campus or at school may not be willing or wanting to seek support within their community. It may be because of systematic oppression, right? Limited experience, misconception of youth rights, distrust of the system, maybe because of their immigration status, right? So they don't know like what may transpire if they were to report it. Fear of changing schools, afraid parents may be involved, right? Sometimes we do have some tough parents that could be really scary. Um, and loss of community, right? So these are just some barriers as to why some people do not report the abuse that they experience. So just something to mention.
Thank you for that. So how to counsel young survivors, right? So it's really important we want to build trust and safety, because without trust and without them feeling safe, how could they really confide in anyone about the experiences that they're facing, right? So we really want to create a safe space for them. Explain your role, counseling as a tool to process experience, identify needs and resources, and create change. As long as you're being transparent, let them know your capacity, let them know what's under your umbrella, the umbrella. And if possibly later on, you may need to help have them sit with someone else. Because once you're forthcoming with this information, nothing is heading. And it goes back to building trust in that safe environment. Understanding the limits of confidentiality in your role, and explain it. Of course, there's a limit, right? Like if you're student or if someone is coming to you and they're telling you like, I have been sexually assaulted, you could keep their identity, of course, confidential, but now you will have to report this situation, right? And this is why it's important to explain your role in it, explain to them what's going to take place, explain to them what it's going to look like, explain to them the impact, right? And be aware of survivor rights and resources. It's really important to share the information because it may not just help the young person that you're assisting, it could also help anyone else in their community. Once they know that they have, again, trust, safety, and resources, they're going to be willing to want to explain this to their friends, possibly other family members that may be going through something similar.
Okay, so additionally, right, creating a safe space, right, showing love and support, creating a non-judgmental place for others to express slash share their feelings and experiences, right? And this is very important because if there isn't a space for a youth to talk about the abuse that they're experiencing, they may start to look internally, right? And this is where we start having people who start harming themselves, right? To give them a sense of control. So just things you can ask, right, is like, what does a healthy and respectful relationship look like to you? This will give you some idea of like, okay, so where's this person's perspective on like what healthy looks like? Because you know, society, social media, right, can, you know, make students have maybe unrealistic or unhealthy expectations of what relationships should look like. Things you can ask about their relationship is like, is there anything you enjoy or value in your relationship? If there's not a lot that they can say, that may be an indicator that maybe they're not in the healthiest relationship. And then, is there anything in your relationship you find challenging or difficult? So this just opens up the space to talking about, okay, yeah, I find this challenging, I find this difficult, and that'll help you understand the dynamic that this person has with this other person. So first thing you should always do when a person is coming to you is believe and validate. Letting them know what they are feeling and experiencing is valid, is very important because maybe this person has tried to speak up before and maybe they weren't believed before, right? This is very common with people who come up and talk about the abuse that they're experiencing. So very try to avoid casting blame or doubt within that space when that person is trying to be vulnerable with you. Safety planning. So this could be done by educating them on safe places and people to call, developing safe words, right? Preventative measures to lower risk of abuse. So just letting them know things that they can do to protect themselves, or just putting things in place to make sure that if anything were to happen, um there is like evidence of, okay, this person was stalking me, or like I let my friend know, hey, like I'm going to be this place with this person just in case anything may happen. And safer technology use, right? So going over how to make technology safer, right? So example, changing your privacy settings to make them more private, security settings, direct access to their phone, enhanced passwords, and incognito web browsing, right? So taking screenshots of certain messages, blocking, those sorts of features that technologies allows us to use to make sure that we don't have any unwanted people in watching on any platform that we're on.
I do want to just piggyback on safer technology use, also like them sharing their location. A lot of these young adults are sharing their location with everyone. And it's like, it's okay, right? Like for a close parent, maybe a close friend, a close relative, but 10 to 15 people do not need to know where you are at all times, right? Like some things, and it goes back to understanding that there's boundaries, some form of limitation. Not everyone needs to know, because you never know someone's intentions, especially when things go left, right? When things are not at its best state. So just wanted to put that out there. So this is us wrapping up. Of course, it was hosted by myself, Alexia P. Walker, and my colleague,
Jonathan. Just Jonathan.
Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you all in the future.
Yes,
Take
it was a
care.
pleasure. Bye bye, guys.